life is not a beach where we go in Florida every year. And it's been more than a few years. We've been doing this since the 80s. But a little bit of geography here to show everybody. We're at the intersection of three outdoor activity centers here. You got the Florida Trail, which is over here. This is the Florida Trail. It's a 1,500-mile trail with a couple of options here, and Orlando's at the center of it. You have the Coast to Coast biking trail, which goes from St. Pete out to Merritt Island, and Orlando's near the center of that. And then you also have the St. Johns River, which starts out, and here's Orlando again. So you have this crisscross of three hiking, biking, and water sports, water activities that actually we didn't know about until much later. We first started going there in the 80s. Get this down, get rid of that one. It was with Lynn's parents on the left there, John and Joyce, and they were the snowbirds from New York State, where we were from, and their grandmother. And whenever we would come down, we were working stiffs, we'd fly down on Legion Air. They'd take us to these places. They took us to the Blue Springs campground, and we'd see the manatee. They showed us bike trails, Indian Mound over near the East Shore towns with little events going on. And, you know, so when we would drive down, for the first part, we would just fly down. And then we started taking a little more time and we would drive down. So we'd go through St. Augustine, which has a wonderful, pristine Anastasia State Park, and lighthouses. And we also did some canoeing. This is in the early days. Notice I don't even have a beard there. I'm probably in the 90s. We didn't have kayaks. Kayaking is pretty new for what we've been doing here. We would just rent canoes and we'd paddle down the Swanee River and do some camping there. Again, the manatee would show up. We went to the Florida Everglades, Flamingo Park with the Rangers, and kayaking out into the sea. This over here, oops, I'm going to go back. Sorry.
Click on the slide. There you go. Now you should be able to.
So the center, just to show you here, it doesn't look like much. That's a pod of dolphins swimming in a circle. We just happen to come on, and they spin the fish around in a circle, and then they turn around really quick and then start just having them fly right into their mouth. It was an amazing thing we saw, and I'm showing you that because it's going to repeat later on. We saw it again happen to us just this year. You know, so we did a lot of biking. Of course, Lynn got to lounge around while the servant fanned her, which is always appropriate, right? So this kind of shows you here, this second map in here, all these little squiggles and lines, my Gaia maps. I try to track my hiking, my biking, or kayaking, and also it shows you this density all around Orlando area. And you know, since we've been going for over 3 decades, when they passed away, we started diving in pretty heavily, coming down here and also when we retired, we go there for 2-3 months out of the year in the winter, which is really their summer. And since then, we've made a lot of friends down there. There's Sheila and Frank up in the top there she's an avid cyclist, does a lot of cross-country cycling, and she told us about different trails. There's Matt, who hikes from the Florida Keys to Nova Scotia. We met him on the Florida Trail one year and still in touch with him. 2 ex-AMC people there, Kathy and Dave. That we met an avid kayaker and photographer, ex-military guy. Primarily a maintenance group. I mean, we struggle here to have a couple of Sawyers on our list. They have over 30 Sawyers, and I'll show you. You'll see one of the bridges they built, which is phenomenal. It had 50 volunteers come out to reconstruct a pretty major bridge. I can just touch screen there.
Okay.
So that's another reason we go back, is we've gotten to know a lot of people down there. And when we're not doing all of these fun things, biking, hiking, kayaking, touring, there's other fun activities, culture and museums and arts that I'll get into a little bit. Starting out, we're going to be looking at this one on the left here, Lake Apopka area, which is just west of Orlando. Has wonderful bike trails. There's hiking up and through here. There's several other state parks, Wakeva State Park. This is Moss Park, which is south of Orlando. It has a lot of bird activity. Kayaking, here we have the Little Econ River that flows out into St. John's and Charles Bronson State Forest. We have activities there. This one here, I forget now, there's so many lines. But there's also some good urban bicycling. Orlando is pretty bike friendly and has a number of bike trails going through it and around it, as you can see by all of these lines here. And then there's the St. John's itself. We're down in the area where St. John's is pretty narrow, and you can see all the tributaries and estuaries and the backwaters, and that's where you go to find the really great wildlife and avoid things like your boats. The last one, kind of selfish. All the yellow are the towns we visit frequently: Winter Garden, Orlando, Sanford, DeLand, New Smyrna, some towns, and then the red are campgrounds that we tend to frequent. So you can see this concentration, all of that crosshairs of the three types of activities that we really like to do. This is Magnolia Park. It's right off of Lake Apopka, and there's a big trail called the Apopka Loop. It used to be one of the major fishing lakes in the country. Unfortunately, it got polluted, and they're working on reviving it now. And they have these wild peacocks that run around there. They're kind of fun to watch. And they come right into your campground. But the loop itself, the whole loop is Magnolia Park is here. We're going to do the northern shore, which is a wildlife viewing. To do a complete loop, you have to do some road riding, and you hook back up to this orange trail, which I'm going to show you that one in a bit here. But this is typical, ospreys eating. A couple little friendly guys there on the side. This woman here actually is a volunteer and knows them by name. It was photographing, but if you notice, we were wondering why she has a false leg on the right-hand side there. Alligators are not as scary as they seem to be. They're actually, if they're laying around, they're pretty safe because they've already eaten. The only time you want to worry about alligators if you see two little eyeballs under the water coming at you. Then they're stalking, then they're hungry. Most of the time, they just want to lay around, or they're going to run away from you. So kayaking and everything is not that dangerous, which a lot of people ask us about that part of it. But you get to see wildlife in a lot of its forms. That's some of the road ride you have to do to get around the whole lake. But from the campground, you can stay out there late. You can stay out there till dusk, till the evening. Evening's not so good with alligators because that's a lot of times when they're hunting. So next is the West Orange Trail, which we frequent a lot. And again, this is all part of that coast-to-coast trail. It cuts through here on these particular trails that we're doing here now. Again, Magnolia Park is right here. So you get wonderful sunsets, by the way. We just showed you that one. Now this one here, we're going to go west over to a lake called Lake Claremont, where they do Olympic training with sculling boats, and then it keeps going north up to Sanford and such. The town of Winter Garden is a favorite of ours, small, and the path actually goes right through the center of town. It used to be an old rail bed. It went right to the center of town. And what did they produce? Oranges. It was a huge orange industry, which collapsed, obviously. So they made it into this wonderful path. And there's wonderful rest stations, which all have cycling, rentals, and repair right there. There's probably 3 of them along the whole route. So you never have to worry about being out of touch there. A lot of people use it, roller skaters, other bikers. And it's not all flat. This part of the country actually has some pretty, that doesn't even give you the scale. Some of these hills here are, good workout to get up in. It's actually near the highest point in Florida, which I believe is like 350 feet or so elevation. They call it Mount Green. So just some other, and there's a favorite, there's an eagle's nest. It's there every year we stop and to see this eagle's nest and check out what, if they've had their fledglings yet. It goes through a couple of small towns. Claremont Lake, you can see what beautiful lake there, and it has a beach with restrooms, and it's not continued out. So if you're doing the coast to coast, there is some road riding involved to get to the different sections. They have a preserve along the way, which is nice. Live oak trees, which are just gorgeous and great shade. And then you're back into, so it's an out and back to Winter Garden Park. These aren't clement, I forget what those flowers are there, but they're really. Wisteria? And it's not wisteria, actually. It's a different, it looks like wisteria. I forgot the name of it at the moment. So the Little Econ River is a small river here, and it's called the Little Econ because Econolachi, which in Indian means the river of many mounds. So there were probably a lot of Indian mounds along this river. And there's a big Econolachi and a little Econolachi that come together. So they just call it the Big Little Econ, not like the Little Big Mac or the Little Econ. And you can see the numerous trails in here, the yellow and the white line. And this orange line, that's the part of the Florida Trail as well, which comes up through here along a rail bed and then follows the river. And this goes out into the St. Johns River. We've kayaked it and approached it in from the other end as well. And we love camping, hiking along where there's water because you get the most kind of activity of bird life and animal life. So we're doing one of these mini squiggles here. We're up on a bluff, by the way, is probably about 10 to 15 feet down. Whoops. Go back. Come on. On Alachi, there we go. This was one of the bridges, the Florida Trail Association. You can see their red tag there. It probably spans about 50 feet over a deep ravine that passes water, was washed out a few years ago. And they had 50 people, it was like ants carrying parts in, brought some of it in on a barge up the river. It's quite navigable, most of it. And of course, see your little friends there lounging. A lot of sand, beautiful tannic waters from the oak leaves, another alligator. Also, we're up on a bluff, so him trying to get to us would be kind of difficult. There's these tall pines, great place to sit and have a little lunch. Ferns and iris and turtles, right? And then kayaking on it. It's quite nice. It's also a lot of, there's a lot of boating down there, and they have airboats and everything else. And the nice thing about this is these tree snags, it keeps the motorboats from coming up the stream. So it's a little more calm and collective. The St. John's can have a bit of that, depending where you are. You can get out and get your feet wet and feel like you're floating. I mean, her boat there. These are inflatable kayaks, by the way. They're drop stitch technology, the closest thing to a hard shell, and very durable, but based on a paddleboard. So it's really easy to get in and out of them. They're not tippy. Charles Bronson State Forest, another real favorite of ours. Borders right there. You can see the, for the people back home, this is the upper end of the St. Johns River. We kind of do a loop where we're on the white trail and loop. So then this orange one is the Florida Trail. With this little star here, you can see that would take you up to the Little Econ where we had just been. And it's just a really nice loop trail. It has a lot of environs and biomes and environments that we just love, especially like these little carnivorous plants here. You have to watch out for, they'll bite your toes off. You do have to, this one particular day, we saw two little pygmy snakes. Now that looks really big, but he's quite small. They're rather docile, and you just step right on them, and brightly colored, so they're easy to pick out on the trail. They do a lot of controlled burns in Florida. You have to, it's good to sort of look ahead if you're going to go hiking, because you never know if they're going to be burning that day. They have to close the trail. And sometimes you see plumes of smoke coming up that are far away and not really in your area. Because they're so close to St. John, there's numerous creeks and marshy areas in this particular woods, but you can see some of the change from the pine, longleaf pines. They're really long. The natives, and there are artists down there now, the pines can get up to 18 inches long, and they weave them. And the early Seminoles, which is, they don't actually call themselves Seminoles, make baskets and other clayware, but this was some of the real marshy area. Now this year it was almost bone dry if we're going through a drought season, so it can really fluctuate a lot. The other thing to note about the St. Johns River, there's another one of those little toe biters over there. Actually, the leaves are sticky, and so bugs get stuck in the leaves and they just digest them. And then you have pitcher plants on the right-hand side there, which we see down there often, very beautiful fern area, tell by the wet. But the St. John's runs 310 miles and only drops 35 feet. So it's a half an inch a mile. It's like the longest flowing lake in the world, which also causes problems during hurricane season because it is so slow. If they get tons of rain, which they did 2 years ago, the water goes over the banks and then it just sits there, and it kind of triples its size and can flood some of the towns, and then it just can't move fast enough to get out of, clear the way. A little more of the Florida Trails handiwork here, a bench, there are markers and orange blazed, unlike our white one. Boardwalks, more of the open pine, a lot of these air plants that are beautiful. And we got to, occasionally stop and talk to a through hiker there. This gentleman was heading up to the Panhandle. It goes all the way out to the Panhandle, the trail. When we're not doing those fun things, we find other fun things to do. Winter Garden has a great farmer's market and music and flowers, food, people with parrots, music, great streetscape there. And this is the bike trail down to the center of town, which is kind of a main feature, a unique feature we feel of that town. The Wekiva Trail here drops down from north and right here above Orlando. You can see the circled area here. I was having troubles with my pen, but this yellow section, this here is the West Orange section you just saw with Apopka Lake, where we also do this part down from Sanford. They built in these beautiful underpasses. You don't have to very busy intersections. There's several tunnels. So we take this trail down, but a lot of times we'll have a destination. So we went to this one museum, beautiful little meditative place there. We try to pick out, and they have this one continuing row of, it's kind of like historic picture paintings. This one man does all these, and it goes on for like a mile. These fences that are just painted with different images, old people, news, different movie stars, and things of that nature. Another section of the Coast to Coast Trail up here north of Sanford, this green section here. It's called the Spring to Spring Trail. It's really a series of trails. They connect up. Starts in Gemini Springs and goes to this one called the Emerald Spring. Just this beautiful green, has a little wildlife in it. Forested trails. Gopher tortoises. If you don't know what a gopher, they burrow in the ground. So it's not a turtle, they're actually a tortoise. And they usually come out and chew the grasses. You got to be careful because they're very kind of slow moving on the trail. Little boy wants to follow us. There's a campground we were in that the trail crosses through, and some of Gemini Springs, an old farm there that they turned into a section of it. Right there on the same trail is, we were camping up here at the time, so we took a section of it, and then there's a dog leg that goes into the town of Sanford. Sanford's another nice little town. It was a big shipping area in its day. They have a tourist paddle boat here that actually has a paddle on it. A nice waterfront where you can hang out, and there's a marina, a lot of quaint craftsman style homes, park for families and kids for picnicking all along this waterfront. Just another nice connection that gives you so many different options for traveling. North of this same intersection here, but not on the map, going north is part of this, another dog leg that goes to the Blue Springs, a big manatee area. It was part of the Bartram Trail, and Bartram was a 17th century botanist who spent time canoeing all through Florida and camping and detailing drawings of all the wildlife, and because they didn't have cameras back then, so bringing them back to England and showing people all this amazing wildlife and everything. This is where we get our hill climb too. There's a lot of these bridges over. This is over a railroad. A lot of times they're over roads, highways. Some of the manatee. There's a mom and her older pup. And the Blue Springs empties out into the St. Johns River. If you're not familiar with the springs, they all are water that comes way from the south, like Georgia, Louisiana, Tennessee. It travels underground for hundreds of miles for 1,000 years before it pops up here, crystal clear. It's always 74 degrees, winter and summer. So it's nice in the summer for swimming. And in the winter, when it gets cold on a cold night, I was just telling Caitlin, she's going down there, and I said, you got to go there, watch for the weather. When it's a cold night, they all come in from the St. John's, and they come up here because it's 74 and the river might be 62, and there'll be hundreds of them. And the last couple of years, they've had like almost 200 come up into the spring, which is a good sign. That means unfortunately they get hit by motorboats sometimes, and you'll see a ranger out there in a canoe with his book, and he knows each one by the scar on their backs from there's a big effort to try to, keep them safe. And this was one of the park personnel there. We were just chatting about it. And here's our turtle and our tortoise crossing you have to watch for, don't want to run them over. They are a protected species, luckily for now. And so now I want to get into the water. We did a lot of it's the St. Johns River. And these are our inflatables. Here they are rolled up. They're like 3 feet by 18 inches round. Have a battery pump, and then they're a hard shell and a nice large space to sit in. And there's our buddy Steve. Comes down, we contact him, we want to go out today, sure, let's go do this. And he can point out wildlife places too for us. This is a group of storks. It's unusual to see a lot of storks together. They're usually kind of solitary. Eagles, spoonbills, they're so much fun to watch. If you're not familiar with spoonbills, they have a spoon on their mouth, and they're swishing in the water back and forth, trying to stir stuff up, and they're going and catching little microorganisms and small snails. And they're pretty friendly. They're not skittish like some are. Some more of the backwaters. There's Steve doing his photography. This is sort of near the mouth of the little econ here. I mean, you could almost get out and walk. In some cases, we've had to because it'd be too shallow. Some black-necked stilts. They call them stilts because they have these really high, tall legs, much like a heron, or in this case, sandhill cranes. They're doing their little singing here. This is a little tree frog that decided to get a little ride from me when I was passing under a tree. He eventually found another tree. Eagles. Steve likes to stay out till almost dark because it's a lot of times when the wildlife comes out and you get the best photography. And the light is just gorgeous. And this is more of our urban biking now. And from Deabury, there's a thing called the Sunrail, and it goes all the way up to DeLand now. And you can bring a bike on the train and ride down. I forget how far it goes. It goes quite far into Central Florida. And you get off in Orlando. There's this old mission type style railway station. You can see the old oak benches they still have there. And just riding through some of these neighborhoods, I look for bike-friendly lanes on Google Maps. They do have designated trails, but then other places it's just bike-friendly lanes with very interesting houses like this Art Deco one here, getting out of the main urban area. And our goal was to bike from Orlando, then up to this town called Winter Park, where we would then catch the train and go home. And this was a 5-lake tour. There's all these lakes which all have a little, they can't be privatized totally. And there's private land on them, but they always all have to have some area that's public access where you can sit and enjoy the lake. You can see some of the quaint houses here, some of the not so quaint, but very beautiful. But there's wildlife here. They a lot of swans in the area. This one has her little chicks here. Some wood ducks, which are really beautiful. So now we're coming into the more Orlando area. Here, this map now gives you an idea. This is where the train station is, so you can see our circuitous route. We sort of would wing it. Oh, that looks like, let's go down there. Oh, no, let's go over here. Oh, here's the lakes. Well, we'll go over this way. No, up here. Oh, okay. Then we eventually have to get back on a trail that's going to take us all the way up to here to catch the train. And this area is a little more trail designated. We're coming up to this Lake Eola. Interesting group of species here, all hanging out together. That's an egret, that's an ibis, and then we have a crow around the park here. Some interesting sculptures. This is a site where they have a wonderful farmer's market, which I'll show you.
Is this Winter Park, Jim?
This is actually in Orlando. Okay. We're right in Orlando now, right at the edge of the main urban, high-rise areas. It's an interesting time. It just at Lake Eola, it just stops, and then it becomes this sea of small homes that are, craftsman style houses, but then they have this, really designated trail that goes right up through the middle of it, well marked. Goes up past the Orlando Art. They have a really nice art museum. Their sidewalks are double wide. They're meant for pedestrians and cyclists and joggers. And then up to Rollins College and the town of Winter Park, and then catching our train there home for the evening. Now, Steve's been a really great source. Has taken us places that very few people go to. These they're called pygmy bald cypress, that some are 1,000 years old. And the only way you can access it is through this Black Creek channel here, where they have the watch alligators. He's making sure we're okay. We're not. And navigating up through this channel, which is sometimes really difficult because when the water's really low, there's snags, you have to get over trees, but they're just amazing sentinels that have been there. And I think they missed getting logged because they're out in the water. They're kind of split open and craggly, so they're probably not very good for building anything. You can see this is called the heart tree, I guess. There's supposedly this heart-shaped silhouette in here. He's got a name for all of them. There's, rookeries here. You can see all the white birds. There's ibis in here and white herons and egrets. And on a calm day, the reflections are just outstanding. And just going through here, it's so peaceful and quiet. You just hearing the wind whooshing through there. And Steve loves to stay out late, so he knows the channel really well, so we trust him because we're actually not going to get back till dark, and we stay out here till the sun goes down. And he gets his pictures, and of course I get some of mine, and we're all happy. Please move this window away from the shared application. All right, that's all right. And the ultimate thing is to find this, what they calls the dragon cypress. You can sort of see this dragon's head here, his neck, the body of the dragon. It's quite stunning when you're just sitting there watching this with the sun go down. And then we make our way back through the channel with headlamps. And this day we were treated to a couple of planets that were just coming out. The crescent moon was up here. I don't know why it's not in this picture. And then getting back to our campsite. This is the first picture of our camp. Up till now, we've always tent camped, and we have a screen room. So we have a Honda Pilot. We would back it up to the screen room, and have it all decked out. And then this was like our living room here. And in the past year, during COVID, we went out west, and it was just so cold. We were out there in November, late November, in Sedona, and we were just freezing the whole time. We said, we can't do this. We can't travel like this. And plus, the campgrounds have been really discovered. You can't just pull into a campground anymore and without a reservation. We were constantly moving every night. We never got to set our tent up. I set the Honda up with a deck in the back. I took the back seats out, put in drawers and flip downs and shelves. We were always camping in the truck, so we might as well have a van, we said. So we got this. So I saw this used in Jacksonville and bought it. It's under 20 feet, so which was what we have been looking at them for years, so that we could park them in the city. Our friend Sheila, who we met, the cyclist, told us about this route. It's not an official bike trail, but it's a road that's considered a scenic route along the East Coast here, in the town. It goes through the town of Cocoa, which is really a pretty little town. You can tell by some of the murals and the streetscape. This is the entrance to their theater. And it has a historic area called the Valencia Historic District, where all the homes are Spanish style. It was a development at the time. And as we're going along, we hear this rumble. It's not like a jet sound. It's not like anything you've ever heard. It was one of the rocket launches of SpaceX. It got to be the point where it's like, oh, another one, oh, another. Every week they were shooting up another. It is pretty interesting to watch them, though, because when they separate up here and there's this big flume of smoke, they're quite spectacular. And then, of course, back through town, some of the houses along the way, we got some ice cream. We're treated to a pod of dolphins out here fishing in the bay. This is, by the way, the intercoastal waterway. We're not actually out in the ocean. It's the intercoastal waterway that's along here. And we were wondering if we had settled in here. We didn't know they came this far south. But there's always interesting views along the way of architecture and wildlife. You never are quite sure what you're going to run into. Okay, come on. Not the laser, thank you. Moss Park is become a favorite of ours. We recently discovered this one just south of Orlando. Orlando's just up in the left-hand corner of this map. This is the blue that's a bike trail we did, some hiking. Again, the Florida Trail comes through here. But the particular draw with these two lakes, one of which has this spot right here called Bird Island. And hundreds of birds come in there every evening to roost. And we'll show you that. Of course, our local sandhill cranes come in. They're not shy at all. But it was a really beautiful lake, and the clouds were just wonderful that day. Some of the images. Some of the channels there. Taking a break. So on our way, this is coming back now, and this is Bird Island. We're at the bottom edge of it. Lynn says, I need a break. I'm just going to hang here, chill. Okay. So I go photograph some birds, some storks making nests. And then as the evening sun starts to come in, you can see the variety of storks and egrets and ibis all flying in together in flocks. and the sound is almost deafening, the honking and chirping. And this guy was fun to watch balancing. He kept changing. Whoa, 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 whoa. And then, of course, the full moon coming up over the lake here made it a little even more special and allowed me to catch a couple of interesting flights.
That's cool.
Yeah. And we were that's just a stone throw from the put in, so it was okay to come back when it was dark with our headlamps and our little camp set up when we got back there. Also part of the park there. So we've heard a lot about grounding and being grounded when your feet are on the ground and changing your energy and barefoot hiking. So we thought, all this sand, why are we, if I were on a beach, I wouldn't have shoes on. So we took our hiking shoes off and hiked a couple miles in the sand. There's a lot of sort of maintenance roads in a lot of these forests. So that some are very sandy and then others are, we didn't go barefoot in these sections. We tried, it was a little tough. But it was actually quite pleasant. We really enjoyed it. And again, we sort of try to join our trips with our fun, and New Smyrna is one of the few beaches that we actually do go to. It does have some bike trails down along the coast, and it does actually connect up to the coast to coast. At one point, Titusville, which is south, the trail goes to the south, and the other trail goes into New Smyrna, and it has a couple of its own. But it's an old, what they call old Florida. The buildings are not new and modern and slick. There's this wonderful new art gallery there that we've gotten to know some of the people at. The sand dune park, where there are these protected sand dunes, you're not allowed to walk on them. That's why they have these boardwalks that you can walk out on and see the sand, the beach sunflowers. I think this is called the Ponce de Leon Lighthouse. You bike out to the other end of New Smyrna and you come to the national seashore, which is really, you have it all to yourself. There's nobody hardly goes down. Everybody stays up at the beach. You are allowed to drive on that beach at night or during the day. This is actually the more commercial side of New Smyrna. They do lifeguards and they do let you drive out there. This Turtle Mound is one of the middens. The midden is where Native Americans have been eating shells for thousands of years, and they didn't just throw them anywhere. That was their garbage dump. They would just pile them and pile them and pile them, and they become these huge mounds over 1,000 years, which then we used to hike up to. And now you got a high point, and you can look all the way back. So here's New Smyrna, looking back there. But it's really nice when people just come out. Most of the beachgoers leave, and then you have the evening people come in with their little campfires. And so those are like a lot of our regular haunts. There's others. Those were kind of special ones that we go to often. So our new adventures here was a place we learned from a camper called the Peace River or the Bone Valley. And this river here cuts through a prehistoric layer that exposes hundreds of different types of prehistoric bones and artifacts. So these all down the river, people kayak in there, and then they have these sifts and buckets and floats, and they're going through all of these pieces. This gentleman here in the campground, this table, he collected shark's teeth, whale bones, mastodon teeth. That was just his leftovers. He said, you can have any of these you want. I keep the really good stuff inside. Which he would show us was pretty amazing, relics and details. And the town of Sarasota is actually not too far, about an hour drive from this area here called the Peace River. Just this little section right in here in the Zoloft town. The Ringling Museum, the Ringling Circus people, built this mansion and created this museum of fine art, which is a lot of European, but all more recently modern architecture too.
And they also have the circus instruments.
What was that?
They also have an area where they have the instruments from the circuses.
Oh, yes, yeah,
Which is
uh-huh.
really cool.
Yeah, they do have a whole section you could go into just about their circus, which we didn't
And
get
they
to.
imported a theater, which I played. That is the a solo theater. It was from Italy. They lock, stock, and barrel.
Brought it all over. That
Put it
did.
in there, so-
Yeah. They bought a lot of these masters in there are European paintings and stuff. They made a lot of money with their circus. But it's got a very nice, funky, historic downtown area too, where we had dinner. Not far from there too is this Paynes Creek historic area, was a fort. During the Seminole Indian Wars, I don't know if anybody knows that history, where the Seminole Indians was one of the largest Indian wars in the 1800s that they could not contain the Native Americans because they knew all the swamps and everything and how to live there. And then you have all these soldiers coming in who are like, don't know the first thing about being in the backwoods. And so all these blue dots were forts. They actually built like a wall, a Maginot line of wooden forts like this to contain them. They couldn't stop them or catch them, but they wanted to just contain them in southern Florida. There are still Seminoles there today. Actually, Seminole is not their real name either. They really liked Scottish Highlanders clothing and mimicked a lot of their styles because, again, in the wet, which the Scots wear kilts and everything because of the wet and the long socks and bright colors. And so they would buy all this fabric from the early Scot settlers and create their own garb there. The Highlands hammock is an ancient cypress forest that you can tour with, has great reflections in it, and it's all done by the CCC Lodge. And we also discovered some of the areas around Gainesville. We'd heard a lot about this Prains Prairie in particular. They have wild buffalo and wild horses all grazing out here together. That's the best shot I could get with here's Lynn looking at them. They're out here, and I was able to zoom in with my camera lens there just to kind of get an image of some kind. And then also a lot of wildlife, a couple of guys commuting home from work after that. But it's interesting, I was telling you about alligators, when they're not hunting, they're just doing their thing, and the other species know it. These spoonbills weren't bothered by them coming through there because they knew they weren't being hunted. Some great bike trails right in the urban area of Gainesville. They go out into the country. The interesting thing about Olena State Park here, this river that we're on, it goes underground at this big pool here. The river just goes and disappears, and it travels for several miles and pops up further down, and you can hike from end to end if you want, and kayak the two ends of it. And it's part of that whole underwater system that Florida has with the springs, and it winds up going into Chesapeake. This is a Gulf Coast adventure here that was new. This Crystal River is in terms of tourists, it's supposedly a really big deal. Lots of manatee come in there. They have tour boats going out of there all the time. At Homosassa Springs, you might see it. We chose the lesser of all those, the Chesapeake River and wildlife area. We did go out you can drive out some of these estuaries. These are all little islands you're on. They had this sort of low-key beach here that the locals kind of go to for the sunset. But you're out in this estuary of hundreds of islands. And again, there was this was a Native American mound, they believe a ritual mound village that you could actually walk up to the tops of the mounds here. It's not a midden, they were all intentionally built. That's the museum here. They give you a little pictograph of the village, old sugar mill. And then when you get to the top of the mountain, you have this kind of view looking out the estuary. So the Chesapeake River has what they call the Seven Sisters Springs. There's 7 of these blue holes in this one area where Lynn's floating, and literally looks like she's floating. It's not, the picture doesn't do it justice. You just feel like you're in the clouds and this beautiful clear water. And as we're going out, we duck in a couple little side coves and see kind of a rare heron. This is called a night heron. And during the day, they tend to be in darker areas because they do hunt mainly at night. And I'd only ever seen him one other time in a different spring and more inland towards Orlando. And I thought, oh wow, and he was showing off for us. He was not shy at all. It's an old paddle wheeler boat that somebody had left. So further up, then we take a channel to another spring, which was very shallow, but really changed its nature quite a bit. And rocks of all things. You don't think of Florida as being rocky, but there are parts that are this limestone rock outcroppings everywhere. And then this is the spring, and there were these wonderful 2-foot long fish that just swam around us in swirls, just sort of wondering what we were, I guess. And here's the wild native here.
Do you know what kind of fish, Jim?
Huh?
Do you know what kind of fish?
I don't know what they were. I couldn't really, see them clear enough to identify them, and I'm not a. So when we came back out into the channel, as I had mentioned in the Florida Everglades, there was a splashing of water, and I immediately knew what was going on. Here's mom dolphin and 2 of her young ones doing the same thing, swirling around, catching the fish. For this time at the end, I have a video of it. It's just phenomenal to watch. Fish are jumping in the air and they're spinning around. And the really interesting thing is when they got done, they didn't really see me. This is them up close. They came right to my boat. I thought they're going to run into me, and I go, oh boy, I'm going to go over. Right, they turned on a dime as soon as they realized what it was, and shot out down the. Here's Lynn, and that's the fin, mom's fin there as they're shooting out the estuary. And I talked to one of the locals later and asked, this normally? They said they really don't ever come in this far, and the water was low. And depending on the tide, this is a tidal river, so it's up and down. But they did say that mom will bring the young in to teach them how to fish in this way without them being endangered by, other predators. So they can come in where it's safe. There's an abundance of fish. There's no competition. And she was showing them how to do this little spin, I guess, according to them. The next day we did go out further, almost out into the Gulf. And we were actually, you could see that the tide is kind of low here. These people are out here with their 2 doggies, just walking in the waters because it was so shallow. But the trees are decent. If you look, there's nothing. These should be all evergreen palm trees and evergreens. The last hurricane that came through just slammed it so hard and took everything out. But it's also important to note that if you don't have these buffers, all the stuff that's inland gets hammered. That's been some of the problems, I guess, in down in New Orleans. The coast is losing its buffer. So we decided to get out and do a little wading around and hanging out. And as we're coming back, I was like, another set of. Now here's a couple. I never saw a couple together. So I come to find out they do love coastal areas, the night herons, for some reason. So that we had, 2 great rare sightings in a day. I love odd stuff like this with the air plants on them. But as we get right at the takeout, here comes a manatee and her pup. It swam right underneath us. Here's Lynn pointing, and I have a video of that too, if maybe we get a chance. But we hung there. They hung out for 20 minutes, and there were power boats there. So we were like manatee here, manatee. Oh, and they shut their motors off and coast in because you can't. They're hard to see. If you can kind of see, they're just sort of this dark blob. We could see them really well, but motorboats couldn't. When we got back to the campground, we had another visitor. We had this little owlet, just sort of forlorn, sitting there, and we talked to the staff there, and she says, yeah, that sometimes they haven't figured out how to fly yet, and if they stay on the ground overnight, the fox is going to get them. So she knew how to do it, wraps them up, and took them to a rescue place that she works with all the time. Cutest little guy. And owls are one of my favorite birds. I have to say this. You notice on my mug, I have an owl sticker, so we'll see more of that then later. So inland now, you go in about an hour from the coast, and there's a Withlacoochee River trails. Part of it's an old railroad trail, but this is also part of the Florida Trail, the more northern section of the Florida Trail that follows this Withlacoochee River, which goes quite a ways before it turns and empties out into the Gulf. The trail, I believe, is like maybe 90 miles long. There's little places to stop along the way. There's a little coffee place there. There's a recumbent bike. A couple of spots where you can see the river and the cypress, some of the towns. There's a campground along there. I think a lot of this one's kind of cute. They had all these little wooden birds tacked up there. So we decided to do the trail, basically going back to the same place we were the day before and picking up the actual hiking trail, which is where the Florida Trail actually goes and passes along this river, the Withlacoochee. Again, the beautiful tannic acid colored cypress trees with their knees. And the strangest thing about this day, it was a butterfly day. There were 4 different types of butterflies that some of which I couldn't get a shot of. You've got your swallowtail, buckeye butterfly, monarch. They're just all over the place. Yellow butterflies. It's just a really nice day and a nice place to stop for lunch. So what we do in our spare time, and along with all the fun wild activities, it's just a nice place to be because there's all these great towns with events going on. This is DeLand, which is north of Sanford. It's much like the town of Easton. We really like it for that. It's a county seat. That's their county building. It's near the St. Johns River. We have the Delaware River. They have a college, the Stetson University. We have Lafayette. They have all these outdoor activities, not too big. They have an art museum, which we don't have. This here is the campus right here, some of the campus. Got a fountain there, a little bit of the main street. Go to see plays. What did I just do with that? Did I just drop it in my pocket? I did. Oh, and this is one of our favorite outdoor places, the Da Vinci Cafe, which is an outdoor bar. You don't have to pay to get in there. You don't have to drink, but they have great music several times a week, all in the open. In a 60-degree night. It's really a wonderful, fine place to be. This is the Orlando Farmers Market I mentioned on Sunday. This is Lake Eola, that is on the edge of the urban core. There's a walking path around the entire lake. It's a very diverse area, culturally rich, just fun stuff, great shopping to do there. They have an outdoor amphitheater and plenty of bird life there. You might go there and the park will be filled with yoga practitioners or jugglers. And then of course, there's the springs. This is Kelly Spring where we camp. They actually allow you to float down. These people are in tubes. We just took our kayaking life jackets and floated down the spring, and then you go walk back and jump in and do it again, and just to keep cool on the hot days. This is Wakiwa Spring over here. It's just a large pool that you can just. Most of these parks, you have, it's a paid entry, so they're not just free and open. But this one has camping. There's also Rollins College, which is where we had ended our urban bike trail, and they have a great theater there with wonderful plays. And Sanford, which is on Lake Monroe, I showed you the waterfront we bike to, has also a nice source. They have these outdoor porch festivals, nice little urban core, film shorts. We got to wear our shorts for the film shorts there. Winter Garden, again, they're a big music festival every year with great music, dancing into the night. That's their city hall they use as a main stage. I have a little parrot. I don't know if it's visible here. This guy was just, you want to hold a parrot, sure? Or water park for the kids to play in. Orlando has a wonderful art museum. Volusia County, which is the whole DeLand area, has a studio tour. It goes for a whole month, every weekend for 2 days. You go to a different section of the county. A lot of artists settle down in this area because it's nice weather. They can do plain art, painting, and they're retired. This Jane's again they're big on ceramics, so they were doing raku firing at night. We knew some of the people involved in that. Menlo Museum it was a music festival there. You can hang out amongst the sculptures. Mount Dora is on another lake that we go near with an arts festival. It's like it's hard to keep up with all of okay, what do we got on our schedule this week? If we're not busy hiking, well, this day's going to be really nice, so we want to go up to this river, but we'd also the next day we're going to go hiking, and then we're going to go over to. So the weekends were kind of saved for. Plus, the trails could get kind of busy on the weekends, so the weekends we'd save for these events, and then this is a special place we always like, and the Wakiwa Island, right next to Wakiwa State Park. Wakiwa is an Indian name for spring. Wakiwa was an Indian name for river. So it was always confusing. And what'd I do? That's something I did.
No, chalk it up to a glitch in the matrix. Sure, we can get this back up.
The Wakiwa Springs is this little bar and outdoor area. They have music there. And what I was about to show you, they have a yearly thing they call a paint out. They invite artists from all around, some of which are from up north and come down here. And then
your slide application closed. That was playing the slides.
Oh, okay. So do I just close this thing and open it up again?
Just open up that application. You got your slides on.
So I can close this now.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if that. And this too?
Don't exit that. Just minimize it.
Oh, okay, minimize. Yes, you recover starting. Yeah, I've had to do this before. I just hit get start going and it'll come on there. It's got to recover it for some reason. It's done that to me before. It'll just like must have touched something wrong. The nice thing about this Wakiwa Island, they really are focused on trying to keep the Wakiwa River free, clear, and unpolluted, which empties out into the St. Johns River and starts at these two big springs, one of which you saw people swimming in, and another Crystal Springs, a big hiking area. And so they have this yearly paint out, and these artists come down and they do plein air painting, and they can go anywhere they want, and then they take these paintings and auction them off, and then the money that they get from the auction of the paintings goes into helping support the river keepers funds there. But then on top of it, they can bring in some of their other paintings from the area, and they set up a big display under tents, and you can buy their paintings right from them too. And so we've gotten to know some of the artists from that group, and you can rent canoes and kayaks from there, and then kayak up and down the Wakaiva River. So it's a really kind of unique little place. Let me,
Here's a little slow. Just to-
yeah, yeah. Clean it up. Come on, baby. Yeah, yeah, it's really kind of neat. I don't know if it's not liking
Why not like running Zoom at the same time, which probably takes a
a lot of, yeah. I think I need to get in here and clean this up. You can do it. There we go. All right. It's just kind of buffering there for a minute. Rather than going through the.
We're not sharing the slide deck on Zoom right now.
Oh, it's not?
All right, Zoom's not happening. Can you end the slideshow?
Yeah, yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Mhm. They often have music at the bar there too, so it's sort of music, art. They have a volleyball there, right there. We're just about at the end here, so.
Yeah, or it's
But
pretty laggy.
it's funny, it's been doing fine up to now.
It's been doing pretty well.
What I'm gonna try doing here is close it, and it went into a recent.
I can end the Zoom, but we're gonna lose them if we do that. We might need to wrap it up without the slides for now.
The last two are like,
Oh, that's the,
it's all like animals and stuff. Well, there were a couple of the videos too. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting for the little technical glitch here to go?
I'll just,
Yeah.
are you looking ahead to 2026 and are you gonna do things differently? You're gonna,
We'll probably still go back to the same area and, you know, we're sort of like moving our ring out, just trying to explore say we went to the Bone Valley, which is about 3 hours south of there, to the coast. We probably want to do some more of that. We always pick things up from different campers about great places to go see wildlife.
You go down to Sanibel?
What's that? The what?
Sanibel.
Sanibel Island. Oh, okay.
And they've opened it up since they had the.
Yeah,
bridges out. And, there's a nice, it's at least 12-mile ride going from, north to south.
oh, okay.
And,
On the island.
there's all kinds of,
Yeah, we'll have to look into that.
little, we went out with the bikes and got lost, so we did a lot of miles.
Yeah, we really haven't been up into the panhandle yet either, and there's a lot of forest
There's a
and
lot of-
state forests up there and
Mhm.
that are, and it's, you know, more unpopulated in the arch of that panhandle, and some beautiful, I like coasts when they're sort of unpopulated and undeveloped, you know, like the national. We've never really had much of a problem. I mean, during because we're there January, February, March, maybe April, a little bit, but that's more of I think a summer thing with Florida. It's the bugs. And what I wanted to show the last was, you know, when the other reason it's really nice to be down there then, is a lot of the wildlife are nesting. The egrets, the spoonbills, the cranes are building nests. They're having their young. I have, some great pictures of the young egrets in their nests, and several owls. Owls seem to like campgrounds. Whenever you hear the hooting, and it's funny, at night they sound like monkeys when they're in their mating mode. They're like, whoop, 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 whoop. You're like, what the heck is that? But I jump on my tent, I start to locate where I'm hearing it from, and then I'll usually find a dead tree, and we've actually seen popping out of these dead trees, little white fur balls about this big, sitting up a tree. Actually captured videos of mom flying in and grooming them, giving them a little bath. And also the couples, when they're getting together, either they don't always stay with the baby. Sometimes they're out feeding, but they'll get together and they'll groom each other. They'll sit in the branches and they like use their beaks to kind of clean each other's feathers and do some really interesting things like that. The herons flying in with big sticks in their mouth, beaks, landing and sticking in their nests. All of which, if you're staying in hotels and on the beach, it's just because we're out there all the time, and we've kind of learned where there's rookeries and places, backwaters you can kayak to, where we know they're going to nest. You get to see some of these really interesting animal habitats.